All right, let's talk about the economy. It feels like every week, right? We're just drowning in numbers. And this past week in mid-August, whoa, no exception. It's a lot to sort through. So in this explainer, we're going to try and connect the dots and figure out what's really going on.
So what's the deal? Is the economy heating up? Is it cooling down? Honestly, the numbers are telling us kind of both. It's a real head-scratcher. So let's put on our detective hats. We're going to look at the evidence, follow the clues, and see if we can solve this thing.
Okay, here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle inflation. Then, we'll see what's up with the American consumer. After that, we'll check the pulse on businesses. And finally, we'll look at the folks at the Fed who have to piece this all together. All right, first up, the inflation picture. Let's investigate those price tags. This is the big one, right? It's what we all feel every day at the grocery store, at the pump. So it's the perfect place to start our investigation.
So to really get inflation, you got to look at two key numbers. First, you have the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. Super simple. That's the price you pay for stuff. Then there's the PPI, the Producer Price Index. Think of that as the price the store pays. It's the wholesale cost before they add their own mark.
Now look at these numbers for July. It's a real mixed bag. See that? The PPI, what businesses paid, it was flat. Zero change for the month. But then look at the CPI, what we paid. It still went up. So what does that tell you? It means businesses got a little break on their costs, but that break hasn't trickled down to us at the checkout counter. Not yet anyway.
Okay, out of all that data, this is the number that the pros, the economists, they really obsess over. 2.9%. That's the year-over-year core CPI. And you know, that's still stubbornly high, way higher than the Fed wants to see. It shows that this underlying inflation, man, it's just sticky. It doesn't want to go away.
But wait, what's core inflation? Why do they do that? Well, think about it. The prices for food and gas, they're all over the place, right? They can swing wildly from one month to the next. So economists just pull those out to get rid of the static. It gives them a much cleaner look at the real underlying trend. It's like seeing the forest instead of just a bunch of shaky trees.
Okay, so that's the inflation story. Now for our second clue, the American consumer. This is a big one, because consumer spending is literally the engine of the entire U.S. economy. And boy, did we get some fascinating and kind of weird clues this week.
Check this out. Plus 0.6%. That was the retail sales number for July. It came in hot. I mean, that tells us one thing loud and clear. People are still shopping. The wallets are open. The cash registers are definitely ringing.
And you can't overstate how important that is. Like I said, consumer spending. It's the whole shebang. It drives the economy. So when spending is up, the economy should be doing great. Simple, right? Well, not so fast. Because this is where our mystery gets a little weird.
Because get this. On the exact same day we got that hot spending number, we also got this. 61.8. That's the consumer sentiment number. It's a measure of how people feel. And that number is shockingly low. People are feeling really gloomy about the economy.
So, what gives? This is the central puzzle. How can people be spending money like everything's great, while at the same time telling pollsters they feel terrible about the economy? Why are you spending freely if you're so pessimistic? It just doesn't seem to add up.
Okay, but here's a major clue that might explain it. The job market. It's still really strong. The number of people filing for unemployment for the first time, it's low. So here's the theory. Maybe people say they're worried about the economy in general, but as long as they feel safe in their own job, they're going to keep on spending. It's a case of do as I do, not as I say.
All right, so we've looked at prices, we've looked at people. Let's pivot to our third piece of the puzzle. How are businesses faring? Let's get a view from the factory floor. Are they feeling good and expanding, or are they getting nervous and pulling back?
And when you look at the whole dashboard here, from what small businesses are feeling to what the big factories are doing, it's a pretty consistent story. Things aren't, on fire, but they're not falling apart either. Everything's still expanding. It's just steady, chugging right along. So the verdict here? Stability. It's a picture of steady but not spectacular activity. Businesses are basically holding their ground. And this makes sense, right? It connects right back to what we saw with that PPI number. Producer prices were flat, so businesses are managing to navigate all these confusing signals pretty well.
Okay, let's recap. We have inflation that won't quit. We have consumers who are spending but feeling gloomy. And we have businesses that are just holding steady. So who has the impossible job of putting all these pieces together? That would be the lead detectives in this whole case, the folks at the Federal Reserve.
In this past week, several of them were out speaking. You had Jeff Schmid, Raphael Bostic, Tom Barkin. And when these guys talk, Wall Street listens very carefully because they're not just making small talk. They're dropping hints, sending signals about how they see the evidence and what they might do next.
And really, their process isn't that different from what we've just done. You can almost imagine their checklist. Step 1, analyze inflation. Check. Step 2, gauge consumer health. Check. Step 3, assess business conditions. Check. And then after all that comes the really hard part. Step 4, deciding what to do and signaling it to the rest of us.
And this is the heart of their dilemma. Look at the evidence for and against. On one hand, you've got people spending money and businesses holding their ground. That suggests, hey, the economy is strong. But on the other hand, you've got that sticky inflation and super pessimistic consumers, which hints that there's some real weakness under the surface. It's a total paradox. What do you do when the clues point in opposite directions?
So, the clues are in. Inflation is sticky. Consumers are resilient, but they're also really worried. And businesses, they're holding steady. The picture is any but simple. It's an economy at a major crossroads, which leaves us with the million-dollar question. What move will the detectives at the Fed make next? That's the story to watch. Thanks for digging into the data with me.